Good morning and welcome to our Easter Sunday service here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Don West Jr. and I'll be serving as our worship associate this morning. We are joined by our music director, Carole, and we have the talented professor Pam Flodman as our Zoom tech. She's over at UCI, and I can only assume that the University of California, Irvine gets as much utility out of her as we do because she helps us and keeps us together like glue. Our fellowship is served by our minister, the Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, who is with us today and wearing her Easter bonnet. I remember back in 2019, she punked me right before I gave my first homily at the UUFLB, and today she has teased me for not having my Easter bonnet, so I got to get my bonnet game in order. Reverend Lee Marie leads our services here once a month, and in 2 weeks, she'll be leading our service with a message entitled, Remembering Our Ways Forward. Reverend Lee Marie is also with us other weeks throughout the month to join us in worship when she's not serving congregations elsewhere throughout the country, especially in this time of Zoom. Next Sunday, 4/11, we have the Reverend Stephanie Exbach Dale returning to be with us, and her message is going to be entitled Standard Shifts, addressing the complexity of human beings and our desire to have clarity and uniformity around who is a villain and who is a hero. In Unitarian Universalism, we accept you for who and what you are. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation with membership open to all. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever has brought you to join us in worship today, it is the right reason to be here. We unconditionally welcome all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. Unitarian Universalists subscribe to no single religious creed, but have gathered a set of 7 principles that guide us as we build a religious community together. When I was preparing for today's service, I decided that the principle that most closely related to today's service, in my view, was that of our 4th principle. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Today, our service is entitled, You Can Analog Your Spring in a Digital World, and I will be delivering that in just a little while. Our chalice lighting, just like when we're in the building, we're going to do that here before we begin the service. And if you have a candle at home, I invite you to get yours and light your candle with me. Each Sunday, anywhere where there is a Unitarian Universalist service, a chalice is lit. The chalice is the only symbol we have in our religion. The chalice is the only symbol that we have in our religion. And our chalice lighting words are going to come from our gray hymnal, and it's number 453 in the gray hymnal, if you happen to have one at home. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. And that comes from the Passover Haggadah. Our centering thought today comes from James Mercer Langston Hughes, who was an American poet, social activist, novelist, playwright, and columnist from Joplin, Missouri, best known as Langston Hughes. He was one of the earliest innovators of the new literary art form, then called jazz poetry, and he's best known as the leader of the Harlem Renaissance. Although you're going to be muted at home, please join me in reading as the words are going to come up on our screens. In time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow and flowers lift their heads. And over all the plain, the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow cry, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky, when spring and life are new. Now I invite you to open your hearts, open your mouths and your vocal cords, even though you're going to be muted. Our opening hymn is going to be number 62, When the Daffodils Arrive, provided by our incomparable music director, Carole. And if you are inspired, please join us from home. And so now, without further ado, our opening hymn number 62, When the Daffodils Arrive. Thanks, Carole.
Good morning. This is a new song, so just sing along the best you can. I'll play it through once. When the daffodils arrive in the Easter garden, and the spirits come to thrive, let the heart beat free and clear. When the pussy willows bloom in the springing of the year, let the heart find loving room, spread the welcome far and near. When the sweet rain showers come in the greening of the year, birds will sing and bees will hum. Hallelujah, time is here. Hallelujah, time is here.
Thank you, Carole. Now, as we gather today via Zoom for worship, let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. The words will be on your screens. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to all humanity.
May we
once again
we are
not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle
to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
The Buddha is said to have preached a silent sermon known as the flower sermon, where he only held up a single lotus flower. Only one of those present that day received the meaning of the message. Every year, Mother Nature sends us an abundance of spring flowers on which we can choose to focus our attentions and receive the meaning of the message. Join me in the annual invitation of the seasons. Join me in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Now we've come to the part of the service where we share our joys and sorrows. During this part of the service, we're going to pause the recording. In self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is a responsibility to do both well. During this time, while we're not able to gather in person, our caring and generous community continues to be empowered by the many gifts of those who join in covenant with us. The gifts of service, trust, collaboration, patience, humor, compassion, curiosity, time, and also financial contribution. All of these are needed for this fellowship and its continued good work in the world. Although our ushers will not be able to come forward, and we also cannot eat Paul's cookies, the information on the screen provides 2 ways in which you can give. And that information is also in the email correspondence you received to get to this service today. So please continue to give generously as we continue to maintain our physical building and make upgrades and prepare for the next phase. Just like spring in the rest of the world, we're hoping to open up like the flowers very soon. Next, we're going to have our second hymn. It's hymn number 1021, one of my favorite songs from when I was a child, really because it was in a movie that I loved when I was a kid. Hymn 1021, Lean on Me, performed by our lovely music director, Carole. Take it away, Carole.
Sing out. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have scars, but we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me, when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I want you to carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride and find the things you need to borrow. For no one can fill those other needs that you won't let go. Lean on me, when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I want you to carry on. All day long, I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right on the road. I'll stand your load if you just call me. Lean on me, while you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I want you to carry on. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on a brother when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
Now, please settle yourself comfortably in your chair. You may want to close your eyes for just a moment, place your feet on the floor, and feel connected to the ground beneath you. Let your hands rest quietly. Breathe deeply and allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your jaw and your facial muscles to relax. Together, let's continue to stay grounded. As Pamela starts a short video for us to enjoy as we continue to focus on our breath and breathe deeply.
होली मतलब पवित्रता।
होली में भगवान की होली।
बीती बातें खत्म हुई, past is over, होली।
होली आई रे, होली आई रे, आई रे होली, आई रे होली, आई रे, आई रे होली, आई रे होली, आई रे, आई रे होली, आई रे खुशियाँ लाई रे, लाई रे, लाई, लाई रे होली, आई रे होली, आई रे
परमात्मा के संग से, उनकी शक्तियों के रंग से अपने को रंग ले, बीती बातों को खत्म करें, प्यार, खुशी, एकता के कभी न मिटने वाले रंग सब पर लगाएं। मीठे और सम्मान भरे बोल की दिल खुश मिठाई सबको खिलाएं।
पवित्रता के श्वेत रंग में सारे रंग समाए, जो इसे अपनाए उसको सारे रंग मिल जाए। बीती बातों को भूले, अपनों को गले लगाए, प्रेम और आनंद के रंगों में हम रंग जाए। जीवन अपना धन्य बनाए, विकारों की होली जलाए। जीवन अपना धन्य बनाए, विकारों की होली जलाए। होली आई, 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 होली आई रे होली।
सिर्फ एक दिन की नहीं, जीवन को ही होली बनाएं।
हैप्पी होली, होली मुबारक।
होली आई रे, होली आई रे, खुशियाँ लाई रे, लाई रे, लाई, लाई रे।
होली मुबारक।
हैप्पी होली।
हैप्पी होली।
हैप्पी होली। दीदी आप बोलना हैप्पी होली।
आई रे, होली आई रे होली, हैप्पी होली।
The video we just enjoyed for our meditation today was of the celebration Holi. It originated in northern India and it dates back to the 4th century, and it corresponds to the beginning of spring. And I want you to think about what you saw in the images in that video, and then I want you to think about the opening video and the images that you saw around the world in that video. And then I invite you to think about some of the things you didn't see in that video, and I'm going to highlight some of the things that I didn't see in that video. The things of our new digital age. I didn't see Twitter, I didn't see Facebook, I didn't see Instagram. And some of the things that I like to highlight that I did see in the video was the aspiration and the reaching for purity, for love, for inclusion, and for acceptance. And one of the things that was very interesting to me, kind of the moral of the holy, is that the white, you know, the color white, it encompasses all colors. And in that whole celebration, the whole purpose is to take on the purity of the white and to come out in the white garment and to be completely colored in all the colors of God, all the expressions of life and love. And that's a very beautiful image. And that's one of the primary reasons why I wanted to share that imagery with us today. And our chalice lighting words this morning came from the Jewish Haggadah. The Haggadah, which means telling in Hebrew, is a written guide to the Passover Seder, which commemorates the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. The Haggadah includes various prayers, blessings, rituals, fables, songs, and information for how the Seder should be performed. Although the modern Haggadah, which is the plural of Haggadah, as I understand it, and I hope I'm saying that right, can vary widely. The tradition of reading a book to guide the Seder dates back to the Middle Ages, and some of the elements that make up the contemporary Haggadah were used 2,000 years ago. So this year, Passover started last Saturday, March 27th, and it ends today, April 4th. So happy holidays to everyone who is celebrating Passover. And the moral that I grabbed from that spring celebration is that it reminds us to remember our past so that we can be informed about our future, specifically from the Jewish faith tradition. If you were here a couple years ago when Reverend Lee Marie and I shared the stage on Easter back in 2019, you may recall that I recounted my childhood traditions of Easter, growing up in a mixed Southern Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist, extended family structure in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I shared how I struggled as a child to connect the Passion of the Christ with the scrumptious, pillowy marshmallow bunnies and those lovely Easter eggs that were everywhere. I shared the folklore of the injured bird, saved and transformed to a hare by the dramatic goddess Ostera. I ended that message in 2019 with an invitation to use the lessons of springtime to inform your actions. I begin this message with the exact invitation. I invite you to look inward and perform a spring inventory and perhaps even a spring cleaning of the self, of the closets of your own internal mind. In my work with Knock Out the Stigma Incorporated, we focus on the brain and mental health. We call the mind the cave in our groups and in our discussions. When we're in our minds, in our caves, we're in here, we're in our own inner spaces, and it's an inside job and it's personal work. That is where I invite you to look today as we explore spring and how spring is sprung around the world. So I was curious about the traditions of spring and what it meant around the world. And so I started and I looked in Africa, and I found that they have something called Spring Day in South Africa, which is a relatively new tradition, but it celebrates the breaking of spring and the shift to warmer weather. Curiously, that does not happen in March or April. It actually happens in September because their winter is our summer, because they're in a whole different equatorial plane or something along those lines. And then also over in Africa, in the country of Niger, this is French, so I'm really gonna butcher it, a Curé Salé festival. And the most intriguing aspect of this festival, it also happens around September, and it's the shift from the rainy season to the dry season. And it's strongly embodied by a male beauty pageant that's all of the young men in the tribe dress in elaborate costumes, and they perform ritual dances. And this is really like the major hookup time in this culture and tradition. The female judges approved matches, and it's really a courtship ritual, a spring courtship ritual in the tradition there in Niger. And then we come back here to the United States, going back to 1878, and the Easter egg roll started by President Rutherford B. Hayes, where he agreed to open up the White House to the Easter egg, the desire of children to roll Easter eggs. And that tradition has been on hold for 2 years because of the pandemic. So it's the second year in a row that they haven't been able to hold that tradition in DC. And in my research of all of these traditions, one of the things that the whole world has in common during this time of COVID-19 and the pandemic is that everyone's opportunity to explore these traditions of getting out into the world, seeing flowers, family, community, they've been on hold for almost 2 years completely around the world. And everyone is in a certain space because of that, and also yearning for a return to the opportunities to embrace the things that remind us of how we got here and the connections that got us here. I slid over to Thailand, and in Thailand they have something called the Songkran Water Festival. This is visiting elders and of course throwing water. It's one of the biggest celebrations of the year. And then I went over to Bosnia, and in Bosnia they have something called Cimburijada, which translates to the Festival of Scrambled Eggs. They all gather, families make a huge scrambled egg dish that it seems like they have too much scrambled eggs for the number of people gathered in all the pictures that I saw in the video. But it's also a celebration of renewal, hope, and reflection. And then lastly, I looked across Southeastern Asia and the celebration of Nowruz, which means new day, celebrated as the first day, as the first month of the Iranian calendar, and coinciding with the spring equinox. This new day symbolizes new life, new beginnings, and the rebirth of nature. Why it differs from country to country, the multi-day celebration often starts with people cleaning their homes. Then it quickly escalates into a multi-day festival of bonfires, costumes, family remembrance, visiting of elders, and on the 13th day, a new year public spaces into parks and have picnics and celebrations. All of these global celebrations and traditions entrench and embolden the spirits of hope, reflection, renewal, and rebirth. We have an invitation to go into the closets of our minds, the inner chambers of our cave, and perform a similar preparation of our inner fields and gardens. It is the work that we perform now in this analog aspect of putting the plow to the dirt that shall determine what we harvest when our harvest comes at the end of the season. No change, no change. If we plant no new seeds, what do we expect to harvest later on? The calendar and cycles of the earth invite and remind us on an annual basis, celebrated around the globe. We have celebrations and stories, eggs, images, festivals, all reminders of the invitation to reflect and remember, embrace hope anew, and plant seeds of renewal and rebirth, so that this season you and your crop will flourish. We are all in this together. We are not alone. And most importantly, we are each other's harvest. Bless up and namaste. Happy Easter, Happy New Year, Chag, Samyak, happy holidays. Be the change, be the spring. Barbara Pemberton, she would tell us to speak it with energy. Those were some of her last words when she led our services. She was encouraging us to speak it with energy. So I hope that came through with a little bit of energy and in honor of Barbara. And we saw some of Reva's work earlier in the cafe. So thank you for joining us here at the UUFLB this morning. Now as we conclude our worship service, we will extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with this message of community, love, and justice, taking it out into the world in which we live, even in this time of physical distancing, until we are together again. Go in peace. And now let us join together in our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us today at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. Happy Easter, happy holidays. Hope to see you again soon. And now we will begin our virtual cafe.